Winky by George Saunders, read by me for English 111. 80 people waited in a darkened meeting room at the Hyatt, wearing mass-produced paper hats. The white hats were beginning to begin. The pink hats were moving ahead in the beginning. The green hats were very firmly beginning, all the way up to the gold hats, who had mastered living and were standing in a group around the snack table, whispering and conferring and elbowing one another whenever someone in a lesser hat walked by. Trumpets sounded from a concealed tape deck. An actor in a ripped flannel shirt stumbled across the stage with a sign around his neck that said, "You." "I'm lost," you cried. "I'm wandering in a sort of wilderness." "Hey, you, come on over," shouted a girl across the stage, labeled Inner Peace. "I bet you've been looking for me your whole life." "Boy, have I," said you. "I'll be right over." But then out from the wings sprinted a number of other actors, labeled whiny and self-absorbed and blames her fat on others, and so on, who draped themselves across you and began poking him in the ribs and giving him noogies. "Oh, I can't believe you love Inner Peace more than you love me, you," said Insecure. "That really hurts." "Frankly, I've never been so disappointed in my life," said Disappointed. "Oh God, all this arguing is giving me a panic attack," said Too High-Strung to Function. "I'm waiting, you," said Inner Peace. "Do you want me or not?" "I do, but I seem trapped," you shouted. "I can't seem to get what I want." "You and about 1 billion other people in this world," said Inner Peace sadly. "Is there no hope for me?" asked you. "If only someone had made a lifelong study of the roadblocks people encounter on their way to Inner Peace." "And yet someone has," said Inner Peace. Another fanfare sounded from the tape deck, and a masked gold hat, whose hat appeared to be made of actual gold, bounded onto the stage, flexed his muscles, and dragged Insecure to a paper jail, on which was written, "Pokey for those who would keep us from Inner Peace." Then the gold hat dragged chronically depressed and clingy and helpless and the rest across the stage and showed them into the pokey. "See what I just did?" said the gold hat. "I just liberated you from those who would keep him from Inner Peace. So good for you. Question is you going to be able to stay liberated? Maybe what you needs is a repeated internal reminder, a mantra. A mantra can be thought of as a repeated internal reminder, can't it? Does anyone out there have a good snappy mantra that they could perhaps share with you?" The crowd was delighted, because they knew the mantra. Even the lowly white hats knew the mantra. Even Neil Yannicki, who sat spellbound and insecure in the first row, sucking his mustache, knew the mantra, because it was all on the TV commercials and also on the front cover of the orientation text in big, bold letters. "Give it to me, folks," shouted the gold hat. "What time is it?" "Now is the time for me to win," the crowd shouted. "You got that right, baby," said the gold hat exultantly, ripping off his mask to reveal what many already suspected. This was not some mere gold hat, but Tom Rogers himself, founder of the seminars. "What fun," he shouted, "to have something to give, and people who so badly need what I have to offer. Here's what I have to offer, folks, although it's not much, really. Just 2 simple concepts, and the first one is oatmeal." From out of his suit he pulled a bowl and a box of oatmeal, and filled the bowl with the oatmeal and held the bowl up. "Simple, nourishing, inexpensive," he said. "This represents your soul in its pure state, your soul on the day you were born. You were perfect, you were happy, you were good. Now, enter concept number 2, crap. Don't worry, folks, I don't use actual crap up here, only imaginary crap. You'll have to supply the crap using your mind. Now, if someone came up and crapped in your nice warm oatmeal, what would you say? Would you say, 'Wow, super, thanks, please continue crapping in my oatmeal'? Am I being silly? I'm being a little silly, But guess what? In real life, people come up and crap in your oatmeal all the time. Friends, co-workers, loved ones, even your kids, especially your kids. And that's exactly what you do. You say, "Thanks so much." You say, "Crap away." You say, and here my metaphor breaks down a bit. Is there some way I can help you crap in my oatmeal? Let me tell you something amazing. I was once exactly like you people. A certain someone, a certain guy who shall remain nameless, was doing quite a bit of crapping in my oatmeal. And simply because he'd had some bad luck, simply because he was in some pain, simply because, actually, he was in a wheelchair, this certain someone expected me to put my life on hold while he crapped in my oatmeal by demanding round-the-clock attention. This brother of mine, this Gene, and whoops, there goes the cat out of the bag. But does this maybe sound paradoxical? Wasn't he the one with a crap in his oatmeal, being in a wheelchair? Well, yes and no. Sure, he was hurting, no surprise there. Guy drops a motorcycle on a gravel road and bounces 200 yards without a helmet. Yes, he's going to be somewhat hurting. But how is that my fault? Was I the guy riding the motorcycle too fast, drunk, with no helmet? No, I was home, studying my Tacitus, which is what I was into at that stage of my life. So why did Gene expect me to consign my dreams and plans to the dustbin? I had dreams. I had plans. Finally, and this is all in my book, Power of People, I found the inner strength to say to Gene, "Stop crapping in my oatmeal, Gene. I'm simply not going to participate." And I found the strength to say to her sister, Ellen, take the ball that is Gene and run with it, because if I sell myself short by catering to Gene, I'm going to be one very angry puppy, and anger does the mean and nasty on a person. And I, for one, love myself and want the best for me, because I am, after all, a child of God. And I said to myself, as I describe in this book, "Tom, now is the time for you to win." That was the first time I thought that up. And do you know what? I won. I'm winning. Today we're friends, Gene and I, and he acknowledges that I was right all along. And as for Ellen still has some issues. She'd take a big old dump in my oatmeal right now if I gave her half a chance. But guess what, folks? I'm not giving her that half a chance, because I've installed a protective screen over my oatmeal. Not a literal screen, but a metaphorical protective screen. Ellen knows it, Gene knows it, and now they pretty much stay out of my hair and away from my oatmeal. And they've made a nice life together. And who do you think paid for Gene's wheelchair ramp with the money he made from a certain series of seminars? The crowd bursts into applause. Tom Rogers held up his hands. "Now, what about you folks?" he said softly. "Is now the time for you to win? Are you ready to screen off your metaphorical oatmeal and identify your own personal Gene? Who is it that's screwing you up? Who's keeping you from getting what you want? Somebody is. God doesn't make junk. If you're losing, somebody's doing it to you. Today, I'll be guiding you through my 3 essential steps: identification, screening, confrontation. First, we'll identify your personal Gene. Second, we'll help you mentally install a metaphorical screen over your symbolic oatmeal. Finally, we'll show you how to confront your personal Gene and make it clear to him or her that your oatmeal is henceforth off limits. Tom Rogers looked intensely out into the crowd. "So what do you think, guys?" he asked, very softly. "Are you up for it?" From the crowd came a nervous murmur of assent. "All right, then," he said. "Let's line up. Let's line up for a change, a dramatic change." He crisply left the stage, and the spotlight panned across 5 personal change centers, small white tents set up in a row near the fire door. Neil Yannicke rose with the rest and checked his line assignment and joined his assigned line. He was a tiny man, nearly 30, balding on top and balding on the sides, and was still chewing on his mustache and wondering if anyone or everyone else at the seminar could tell that he was a big stupid faker, because he had no career, really, and no business, but only soldered little triangular things in his basement. For 47 cents a little triangular thing. For CompuParts, although he had high hopes for something better, which was why he was here. The flap of Personal Change Center 4 flew open, and in he went, bending low. Inside were Tom Rogers and several assistants, and a dummy in a smock sitting in a chair. "Welcome, Neil," said Tom Rogers, glancing at Yannicke's name tag. "I'm honored to have you in my seminar, Neil. Now, the way we'll start, Neil, is for you to please write across the chest of this dummy the name of your real-life personal gene. That is, the name of the person you perceive to be crapping in your oatmeal. Do you understand what I'm saying?" "Yes," said Yannicke. Tom Rogers was talking very fast, as if he had hundreds of people to change in a single day, which of course he did. Yannicke had no problem with that. He was just happy to be one of them. "Do you need help determining who that person is?" said Tom Rogers. "Your oatmeal crapper?" "No," said Yannicke. "Excellent," said Tom Rogers. "Now write the name, and under it write the major way in which you perceive this person to be crapping in your oatmeal. Be frank. This is just between you and me." On an erasable marker board permanently mounted in the dummy's chest, Yannicke wrote, "Winky. Crazy-looking and too religious and needs her own place." "Super," said Tom Rogers. "A great start. Now watch what I do. Let's fine-tune. Can we cut crazy-looking? If this person, this Winky, were to get her own place, would the fact that she looks crazy still be an issue? Less of an issue?" Yannicke pictured his sister looking crazy, but in her own apartment. "Less of an issue," he said. "All right," said Tom Rogers, erasing crazy-looking. "It's important to simplify so that we can hone in on exactly what we're trying to change. Okay, at this point we've determined that if we can get her out of your house, the crazy-looking can be lived with. A big step forward. But why stop there? Let me propose something. If she's out of your hair, what the heck do you care if she's religious?" Yannicke pictured Winky looking crazy and talking crazy about God, but in her own apartment. "It would definitely be better," he said. "Yes, it would," said Tom Rogers, and erased until the dummy was labeled, "Winky. Needs her own place." "See," said Tom Rogers. "See how we've simplified? We've got it down on one issue. Can you live with this simple, direct statement of the problem?" "Yes," Yannicke said. "Yes, I can." Yannicke saw now what it was about Winky that got on his nerves. It wasn't her formerly red curls, which had gone white, so it looked like she had soaked the top of her head in glue and dipped it in a vat of cotton balls. It wasn't the bald spot that every morning she painted with some kind of white substance. It wasn't her shiny pink face that was always getting weird, joyful looks on it at bad times, like during his dinner date with Beverly Amstel, when he'd made his special meatballs to no avail, because Bev kept glancing over at Winky in panic. It wasn't the way she came clicking in from teaching church school and hugged him for too long a time while smelling the flower water, all pumped up from spreading the word of damn Christ. It was simply that they were too old to be living together, and he had things he wanted to accomplish, and she was too needy and blurred his focus. "Have you told this person, this Winky, that her living with you is a stumbling block for your personal development?" said Tom Rogers. "No, I haven't," Yannicke said. "I thought not," said Tom Rogers. "You're kind-hearted. You don't want to hurt her. That's nice. But guess what? You are hurting her. You're hurting her by not telling her the truth. Am I saying that you, by your silence, are crapping in her oatmeal? Yes, I am. I'm saying that there's sort of a reciprocal crapping going on here. How can Winky grow on a diet of lies? Isn't it true that the truth will set you free? Didn't someone once say that? Wasn't it God or Christ? Which would be ironic because of her being so religious." Tom Rogers gestured to an assistant, who took a wig out of a box and put it on the dummy's head. "What we're going to do now is act this out symbolically," Tom Rogers said. "Primitive cultures do this all the time. They might throw fertility a big party, say, or paint their kids white and let them whack sickness with palm fronds and so forth. Are we somehow smarter than primitive cultures? I doubt it. I think maybe we're dumber. Do we have fewer hemorrhoids? were Incas killed on freeways? Here, take this." He handed Yannicke a baseball bat. "What time is it, Neil?" said Tom Rogers. "Time for me to win?" said Yannicke. "Time for me to win?" "Now is the time for you to win," said Tom Rogers, clarifying, and pointed to the dummy. Yannicke swung the bat, and the dummy toppled over, and the wig flew off, and the assistant retrieved the wig and tossed it back into the box of wigs, and Tom Rogers gave Yannicke a big hug. "What you have just symbolically said," Tom Rogers said, "is no more, Winky. Grow wings, Winky. I love you, but you're killing me. And I am a good person, and a child of God, and don't deserve to die. I deserve to live. I demand to live. And therefore get your own place, girl. Fly, and some day thank me. This is to be your sub-mantra, Neil, okay? Out you go, on your way home today. I want you to be muttering, not angrily muttering, but sort of joyfully muttering, to center yourself, the following words. Now is the time for me to win. Out you go. Out you go. Will you do that for me?" "Yes," said Yannicke, very much moved. "And now here is Vicky," said Tom Rogers, "one of my very top gold hats, who will walk you through the confrontation step, Neil. I wish you luck and peace and all the success in the world." Vicky had a face that looked as if it had been smashed against a steering wheel in a crash and then carefully reworked until it somewhat resembled her previous face. Several parallel curved indentations ran from temple to chin. She led Yannicke to a folding table labeled Confrontation Center, and gave him a sheet of paper on which was written, "Gentle, firm, loving." "These are the characteristics of a good confrontation," she said, a bit mechanically. "Now flip it over." On the other side was written, "Angry, wimpy, accusatory." "These are the characteristics of a bad confrontation," said Vicky, "a destructive confrontation. Okay? So let's say I'm this person, this Winky person, and you're going to tell me to hit the road. Gentle, firm, loving. Now begin." And he began telling Vicky to her damaged face that she was ruining his life and sucking him dry, and that she had to go live somewhere else. And Vicky nodded and patted his hand, and now and then stopped him to tell him he was being too severe. Neil was coming home soon, and Winky was way behind. Some days she took her time while cleaning, smiling at happy thoughts, frowning when she imagined someone being taken advantage of, and sometimes the person being taken advantage of was a frail little boy with a scar on his head, and the person taking advantage was a big fat man with a cane, and the other times the person being taken advantage of was a kindly, friendly British girl with a speech impediment, and the person taking advantage was her rich, pushy sister who spoke in perfect diction and always got everything she wanted and went around whining while sucking little pink candies. Sometimes Winky asked the rich sister in her mind how she'd like to have the little pink candy slapped right out of her mouth. But that wasn't right. That wasn't Christ's way. You didn't slap the little pink candies out of her mouth. You let her slap your mouth 70 times 7 times, which was like 400 times, and after she'd slap you the last time, she suddenly understood it all and begged your forgiveness and gave you some candy, because that was the healing power of love. For crying out loud, what was she doing? Was it crazy? Was she crazy? It was time to get going. Why was she standing in the kitchen thinking? She dashed up the stairs with a strip of broken molding under her arm and a dirty sock over her shoulder. Halfway up, she paused at a little octagonal window and looked dreamily out, thinking, in a way, we own those trees. Beyond the Theases was the same old gap in the leaning elms, showing the same old meadow that would soon be Toy Town. But for now it still reminded her of the kind of field where Christ with his lap full of flowers had suffered with the little children, which was a scene she wanted them to put on the cover of the singing album she was going to make, the singing album about God, which would have a watercolor cover like Shoulder My Burden, which was a book though, but anyways, it had this patient donkey piled high with crates and behind it this mountain. And the point of that book was that if you take on the worries and cares about others, Lord Jesus will take on your cares and worries. So that was why the patient donkey, and why the crates, and why she prided herself on keeping house for Neil, and never asked him for help. Holy cow, what was she doing standing on the landing? Was she crazy? Today she was rushing. She was giving Neil a tea. She burst from the landing, taking 2 stairs at once. The molding had to go to the attic and the dirty sock to the hamper. While she was up, she could change her top, because on it was some crusty soup. The wallpaper at the top of the stairs showed about 1,000,000 of the same girls whacking a smiling goose with a riding crop. Hello, girls. Hello, girls. Ha ha. Hello, geese. Not to leave you out. From a drawer in a room, she took the green top, which Neil liked. Once when she was wearing it, he'd asked if it was new. When had that been? At the lunch at the beef barn, when he paid, when he asked would she like to leave Rustic Village apartments and come live with him. Oh, that sweetie. She still had the matchbook. Those had been sad days at Rustic Village, with every friend engaged but Doris, who had a fake arm, and boy, those girls could sometimes say mean things. But now it was all behind her, and she needed to send poor Doris a card. But not today. Today she was rushing. Down the stairs she pounded, still holding the molding, sock still over her shoulder. In the kitchen she ripped open the cookie bag, but there were no clean plates. So she rinsed a plate, but there was no towel. So she dried the plate with her top. Hey, she still had on the yellow top. What the heck? Where was the green top? Hadn't she just gotten it out of her drawer? Ha ha, that was funny. She could send that in to Christ's Life. They liked cute, funny things that happened, even if they had nothing to do with Jesus. The kitchen was a disaster, but first things first, her top sucked. Not sucked. Sucked was a bad word. Her top was yugly. Dad used to say that, yugly. Not about her. He was always saying she was purty. Sometimes he said things were purty yugly, but not her. He always said she was purty, then lifted her up. Oh, Dad, Daddy, Poppy Pop. Was Poppy Pop one with the Savior? She hoped so. Sometimes he used to swear, and sometimes he used to drink, and once he swore when he fell down the stairs when he was drunk. But when she ran to him, he hopped up laughing. And oh, when he sang Peace in the Valley, you could tell he felt things would be better beyond, which had been a super example for a young Christian kid to witness. She flew back up the stairs to change her top. Here was the green top, on the top step. Bad top, I should spank. She gave the green top a snap to undust it and discipline it, and, putting the strip of molding and the dirty sock on the step, changed tops right then and there, panicked up the molding, threw the dirty sock over her shoulder, and pounded back down the stairs. There was so many things to do, not only now, for the tea, but in the future. It was time to get going. Now that she was out of that lonely apartment, she could finally learn to play the piano, and once she learned to play and write songs, she could write her songs about God, and then find out about making a record. Her record about God, about how God had been good to her in this life. Because look at her, a plain girl in a nice home. Oh, she knew she was plain. Her legs were thick, and her waist was thick, and her hair, oh my gosh, rather, her hair. What kind of hair was that to have? Ugly white hair. And many was the time she had thought, this is not hair, this is a test. The test of white sparse hair, when so many had gorgeous manes, and that was why, when she looked in a mirror by accident and saw her white horrible hair, she always tried to think to herself, praise God. Neil was the all-time sweetie pie. Those girls were crazy. Did they think because a man was small and bald he had no love? Did they think bad things came in small packages? Neil was like the good brother in the Bible, the one who stayed home, with his dad on the farm and never got even a small party. Except there was no bad brother. It was just the two of them. So no party, although she'd get her party. A big party, in heaven, and was sort of even having her party now, on earth, because when she saw that little man all pea-stained at Rexall Drug, not begging, but just saying to every person who went in that he or she was looking dapper, she knew that he was truly the least of her brothers. The world was a story Christ was telling her, and when she told the pea-man at Rexall that he was looking dapper himself, and he said out loud that she was too ugly to F, she had only thought to herself, okay, praise God, he's only saying that because he's in pain, and had smiled with the lightest light in her eyes she could get there by wishing it there, because even if she was a little ugly, she was still beautiful in Christ's sight. So for her it was all a party, a little party before a bigger party, the biggest. But what about Neil? Where was his party? She would do what she could. This would be his party, one tiny installment on the huge party he deserved. Her brother, her pal to the end, the only loving soul she had yet found in this world. The bell rang home, and she threw open the door, and there was Neil. "Welcome home," she said grandly, and bowed at the waist, and the sock fell over her shoulder. Yannicke had walked home in a frenzy, gazing into shop windows, knowing that someday soon, when he came into these shops with his sexy wife, he'd simply point out items with this riding crop, and they would be loaded into his waiting bins. Although, come to think of it, why a riding crop? Who used a riding crop? Did you use a riding crop on the Benz? Oh, man, he was stoked. He wanted a Jag, not a Benz. Golden statues of geese, classy vases, big porcelain frogs, whatever. When this ship came in, he'd have it all, because when he was stoked, nothing could stop him. If Dad could see him now, walking home in a suit from a seminar at the freaking Hyatt. Poor Dad. Not that he was bashing Dad, but had Dad been a seeker? Well, no. Dad had been no seeker. Life had beaten Dad. Dad had spent every evening with a beer on the divan, under a comforter, and he remembered poor Ma in her Sunday dress, which had a lip, which she'd taped because she couldn't sew, and Dad in his too big hat, recently fired again, all of them on the way to church, dragging past a crowd of spick hoods on the corner, and one spick said something about Ma's boobs, which were big, but all of Ma was big, so why did the hood have to say something about her big boobs, as if they were nice, when they all knew they weren't nice? They were just a big woman's boobs in a too-tight dress on a rainy Sunday morning, and on her Dad was a slit-open bread bag to keep her gray hair dry. The hood said what he said because one look at Dad told him he could. Dad, with his hunched shoulders and his constant blinking, just took Ma's arm and mumbled to the hood that a comment like that did no more damage to the insulter than to the insulted, etc., blah, blah, blah. Then the hood made a sound like a cow at Ma, and Neil, who was 9, tried to break away and take a swing at the hood, but Ma had his hand and wouldn't turn him loose, and secretly he was glad, because he was scared, and then was ashamed at the relief he felt on entering the dark church, where the thin, panicked preacher, who was losing his congregation, exchanged sly biblical quotes with Dad, while Winky stood there beaming as if none of it outside had happened, the lower half of her body gone psychedelic in the stained glass light. Oh, man, if the world had shit on Dad, but it wasn't going to shit on him. No way. If the world thought he was going to live in a neighborhood where Spix insulted his wife's boobs, if the world thought he was going to make his family eat bread dragged through bacon grease while calling it hobo's delight, the world was just wrong. He was going to succeed, like the men described in People of Power, who had gardens bigger than entire towns and owned whole ships and believed in power and power only. Were 30 horse-drawn carts needed to save roses? The call went out to the surrounding towns, and at dusk lanterns from the carts could be seen approaching on the rocky, bumpy roads. Was a serving girl found attractive? Her husband was sent away to war. Those guys knew how to find and occupy their power places. And he did too, like when he sometimes sat to solder 1,000 triangular things in a night to make the rent, and drink coffee till dawn and crank WMDX full blast to stay psyched. On those nights, when Winky came up making small talk, he boldly waved her away. And when he waved her away, away she went, because she sensed in his body language that he was king, that what he was doing was essential. And when she went away, he felt good, he felt strong, and he soldered faster, which was the phenomenon the book called the power boost. And the book said that major success tended to be people who could string together power boost after power boost, which was accomplished by doing exactly what you felt like doing at any given time, with certainty and joy, which was what he realized he was about to do by kicking out Winky. Now was the time for him to win. Why the heck couldn't he cook his special meatballs for Beverly and afterward make love to her on the couch and tell her his dreams and plans and see if she was the one meant to be his life's helpmate? Like Mrs. Thomas Alva Edison, who had once stayed up all night applying labels to a shipment of chemicals essential for the next day's work? But no, Bev was dating someone else now, some kind of guard at the mall, and he remembered the meatball dinner, Winky's pink face periodically thrusting into the steam from the broccoli as she trotted out her usual BS on stigmata and the amount of time necessary for an actual physical body to rot. No wonder her roommates had kicked her out, calling him in secret. No wonder her preacher had demanded she stop volunteering so much. Another secret call. People had apparently been quitting the church because of her. She was a nut, a real energy sink. It had been a huge mistake inviting her to live with him, and now she simply had to go. It was sad, yes, a little sad, but if greatness were easy, everyone would be doing it. Yes, she'd been a cute kid, and yes, they'd share some nice moments. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, she brought him crackers and his little radio that time he'd hid under the steps for 5 straight hours after Dad started weeping during dinner. And yes, he remembered the scared look in her eyes when she'd come running up to him after taking a hook in the temple while fishing with the big boys. And yes, he'd carry her home as the big boys cackled. Yes, it was sad that she sang so bad and thought it was good, and sad that her panties were huge now when he found them in the wash. But like it said in the book, a person couldn't throw himself across someone else's funeral pyre without getting pretty goddamned hot. She had his key, so he rang the bell. She appeared at the door, looking crazy as ever. "Welcome home," she said, and bowed at the waist, and a sock fell off her shoulder, and as she bent to pick it up, she banged her head against the storm window. The poor dorky thing. Oh shit. Oh shit. He was weakening. He could feel it. The speech he'd practiced on the way home seemed now to have nothing to do with the girl who stood wet-eyed in the doorway, rubbing her bald spot. He wasn't powerful. He wasn't great. He was just the same as everybody else. Less than everybody else. Other people got married and had real jobs. Other people didn't live with their fat, clinging sisters. He was a loser who would keep losing for the rest of his life because he'd never gotten a break. He'd been cursed with a bad dad and a bad ma and a bad sister, and was too weak to change, too weak to make a new start. And as he pushed by her into the tea-smelling house, the years ahead stretched out bleak and joyless in his imagination, and his chest went suddenly dense with rage. "Neil, Neil," she said. "Is something wrong?" And he wanted to smack her, insult her, say something to wake her up, but only kept moving toward his room, calling her terrible names under his breath.